Let's start in Kenya this half hour, where more protests are planned over the proposed increases in taxes and extensions in areas of tax raising. President William Ruto said he was ready for a conversation with protesters. And the young people marching on the streets are not alone. Many middle class Kenyans are worried too. Let's speak to rights activist Daisy Amdani. Daisy, thank you for joining us on Newsday. I know there have been a lot of emotions. This story has captured a lot of Kenyans' imaginations. What are your thoughts as you've seen young people protesting in the streets?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Well, I think that this is really just a culmination of the frustration that majority of Kenyans have towards the government and the attitude of government towards their recommendations on the finance bill and the excessive taxation. So the youth have finally come out, sort of like an explosion. They are the manifestation of that frustration that Kenyans have.
And do you think this frustration is just about taxes? Of course, we have to say that this legislation so far has passed through the House, passed through Parliament. But do you think the frustration is just about taxes, or is it about wider problems in Kenya?
No, it is definitely about wider problems. In fact, I think it's symptomatic of a much, much bigger problem. And that is really a problem of impunity and the way those in leadership treat the people. There's an expectation that our leaders are there to serve the interests of the people, but that's not happening. We have public participation where people come and share their views. In fact, previously, last year, there was also a lot of disaffection with the Finance Act now that was passed, and there's still court cases around it. But the legislature, the executive doesn't really care. It's almost like a ticking of the box exercise. And so now the people have decided, since our leaders are not representing us, then we are then going to make our disaffection known, by going out there and protesting and making our demands known, because the legislature was told, reject this bill, go back to the drawing board. This excessive taxation will not work. But this culture of impunity has been there over the years, where the leaders say one thing, they commit themselves to serving the people, to upholding the Constitution, the rule of law, and they just don't do it.
And a key question would be, what kind of changes would you and the protesters want to see? Because it's one thing the government might compromise on taxes, but if you're talking about just general frustrations, that's very difficult to pin down in terms of fundamental changes or policies.
No. The people have already expressed themselves about what the kind of change that they want to see. They want to see an end to unnecessary expenditure. Because when you look at the finance bill, because this is not, it's not about taxation per se. It's about how the government mobilizes revenue and how that revenue is used. There's a lot of unnecessary and wasteful spending. Offices that have not been, that Kenyans were adamant we do not want to see anymore when the constitution was being done, coming back into force through CASs. We have, the president being told that, housing levy and all these other things, there's unemployment. We're not seeing any plan for productivity or economic stimulus. The healthcare system doesn't work. The education system is collapsing. There's the higher education loans facility has been reduced so that even those from poor families cannot access higher education. So everything is being made unavailable. So the state that is there to provide services, to provide development, is here with the one hand excessively taxing people and then forcing the people to privately seek those same services that are expected of them. We have an excessive debt burden. There are calls, can we audit our debt register? Because the Controller of Budgets is on record saying that some of this debt, it is not known how it has been used. There's no visible evidence of what has happened, what this debt has been used for. There is borrowing for recurrent expenditure, which is against the Constitution. And so there's a lot of things. So the government can't play dumb and say, we don't know what you want. The people are saying reject the finance bill, not give us dialogue. Reject the finance bill. Let's go back to the drawing board. We want to see Where's our debt going? Who do we owe money? How much do we owe? When do we finish paying? So there's a lot. There's actually a lot going on. This is just a manifestation of a bigger problem.
There's a lot going on, Daisy, and there is a real fundamental problem for any government in Kenya, which is that if you cut spending, that could lead to austerity, so services could be affected. And also there is a huge debt burden on Kenya, as you mentioned there. So you do have to raise more money. So it's a real conundrum for any government.
I don't think that it's so much of a conundrum. So you talk about austerity. Yes, the president himself is on record saying that we do need to cut down spending. We need to live within our means. Meanwhile, he himself and government officials are living large on the public purse, unnecessary expenditure, allocating funds to offices that shouldn't be in existence, where the government is actually being used as a tool to benefit political cronies, by giving them offices. You talk about the debt. Okay, yes, we do have a heavy debt burden. However, if Kenya is corrupt, it also follows that there's a high possibility that our debt register is very heavily padded. And there have been consistent calls for an audit of the debt register. That has been resisted. The Auditor General's report is a litany of unauthorized spending, wastage of funds, and everything. So you don't really need to put in place excessive tax measures to address the problems. If you seal the loopholes, if you deal with corruption, we have public officials, state officers going to public fundraisers and giving out millions of shillings in cash, money that they can't tell us where the source of those funds. Because where do you get 20 million shillings? Where do you get 10 million shillings to just throw around in a rural fundraiser, So it's not that we don't have money. In fact, if you look at Kenya's revenue mobilization measures, every year they've been able to collect more, but somehow are doing less with that money. More of it is going towards these debt obligations, of which many people are saying we want an audit of that debt register because we believe that some of this debt is odious. We want to see where the money has gone and we want accountability.
Daisy, thank you very much. You want accountability, and of course we'll continue to seek the views of the government there in Kenya. Thank you for joining us, Daisy Amdani.